Hi there, I'm Kirsty from Derbyshire Wildlife Trust and welcome to another Nature at Home video. Today we are looking at creating some natural art. Now don't worry, you don't need to be an artist to do this. We're simply going to use the nature around us to help inspire us, get a little creative, but nature will do a lot of the work for you, and I bet you'll be surprised at just what you can create yourself as well. So today, the 5-way to well-being item that we're thinking about is connecting. So by engaging with our surroundings and using the nature around us to help inspire us, we are going to be connecting with that nature. And there'll also be an opportunity to create some artworks that you might want to share with other people as well. And therefore, as well as connecting with the nature, you may well be connecting with the people that you both already know, and maybe with some of the activities you could even leave a little piece of art behind to connect with some strangers that might encounter your art later on. We're also looking at one of the 5 pathways to nature connection, and today we're looking at beauty. So we're in springtime at the moment while this video is being shot, and this to me is the most beautiful time of the year. You can't help but see the wonder in nature around us. Blossoms springing out everywhere, every day, the leaves look a little greener, and this video is going to be all about celebrating that beauty. So let's get started and I'll show you what we're going to be doing today. Some of the options of creative things we can have a go at making today is nature rainbows. So this is just looking at the colours in nature. It can be done at any time of the year. It's amazing how many colours you can actually spot in winter as well. If you think about looking at the bark, looking at little buds forming. We can also look at creating some natural mandalas and some natural patterns. So this will be just collecting natural materials and positioning them in a way that looks pleasing to you and creating nice patterns. And if you want to get a little bit more involved, I'm going to be showing you an activity called hapazome, which is basically bashing some leaves or some flowers to get the colour out, and we can use that to print on fabric. And we can also create some rainbows and some mandalas out of cuttings from magazines. So if you can't go outside, that's a really great one to do indoors. So you can just flick through, find the colours, find the patterns, different shapes that appeal to you, and we'll use those to create our rainbows and mandalas. If you haven't got any magazines or you haven't got a way to get outside and collect natural materials, I'll also be showing you how you can just feel inspired by nature to create your own natural shapes and patterns to create our own colouring sheets. So that activity is a little bit more in depth, but we'll get into it all later and you can see what you feel like having a go at. Now the first thing I'm going to do is start collecting some natural materials. I'm at the Whistle Stop Centre again today, which is one of our Derbyshire Wildlife Trust sites, so I know that I'm okay to use things from this garden. I'm going to pick a couple of things that are really abundant and that I know are safe to pick, but I'm mainly just going to be picking things loose off the floor. If you are doing this activity in your own garden, or maybe you've got a friend or family member that will let you pick some things from their garden, that's great. You can gain permission really easily and collect whatever you want. Just make sure it is safe to handle, and if in doubt, leave it alone and pick something else that you know is safe and is going to be okay to do this activity with. If you are doing this activity in a public place, then it's easier, rather than trying to find who to get permission from, you can just collect things loose from the ground. And I've moved to a place here that is under some trees, and it's been a little bit windy recently, so I don't know if you can see, but there is plenty that has just naturally fallen to the ground that I can just pick up now. We have new leaves that have fallen down here. We have interesting twigs. So we've got some twigs on that have just fallen on the bench next to me, so I don't even have to get up to get them, that have bits of old blossom stuck to them, which is kind of browny orangey. And all I'm going to do is have a look round, collect materials that I think look interesting, so they might have interesting shapes, lovely colours, different textures, and I'm going to collect as wide a variety as I can. If you are collecting from a public place, just be mindful where you're putting your hands. If there's been dog walkers around, maybe there's litter that you just need to be a bit careful of, so just look where you're going. And also just look out for natural hazards like prickles, nettles. Just make sure that you know what you're about to touch, what you're picking up, and that it's going to be okay. So with all that in mind, let's get collecting. Something we have here that I am going to pick a little bit of is this plant here, which is called a herb robert, which is one of my favourite plant names, and this grows really abundantly. It's often seen growing like next to the cracks of walls or hedgerows. You might even spot some in your garden. So we've got lots of this here, so I am going to pick a little bit of this. And it's just got beautiful flowers. And if we are picking things, what you want to do is just pick a tiny bit, and ideally you won't be able to tell you've been there. So that's what we're aiming for, leaving no trace. No one would ever know I've been here and picked anything off this. Here we go. I have a good collection of natural materials that I've gathered from the Whistle Stock Garden now. Some from the ground, and as I mentioned before, I've picked a couple of abundant things. So you saw me collect the herb robert before, and I also have collected a few leaves of garlic mustard, also known as Jack by the hedge because it likes to grow near hedges, and if you crush this, it does actually smell of garlic as well. And then I've collected some nice sticks, bit of nice moss, all sorts. I've got my art materials at the ready. Now, if you are not able to collect materials outside, but you would still like to do this activity outside, another thing that you could do is just take photographs of everything. So just go around, see how many different colours you can capture in your photographs and create a rainbow that way. once you've gathered your natural materials, you could take them back indoors again if you want to. I thought, as the sun's shining and this patio area looked like a good blank canvas to make some artwork on, so I thought I will come out here. So if you want to connect with other people as well and make them a little creation that you can leave behind, and then hopefully some people will come and discover it later on, you could not bother with a piece of paper and just literally use the ground as a blank canvas, which I'm going to be doing that to create a mandala in a moment. But before doing that, I'm going to show you how you can create a really simple rainbow. And just to help you see it and help me to take a nice photograph, I'm going to use this piece of white paper as my canvas. So if you're collecting materials from somewhere particularly colourful, you might be able to create the whole rainbow. See how many different colours you can get in there. Or you might be somewhere where there's an abundance of one particular colour, but there's different shades of it. So for example, green will be a really common one. I'm going to do a little bit of a mixture on this rainbow. I found a couple of different colours, but mainly green. So we'll see how we get on. Creating a nature rainbow is as simple as that. It's simply looking at your materials and just placing them in a way that pleases you. Enjoy those colours and just really helps you to just really pay attention and appreciate that beauty. So I've got my photograph of that one now on against the white paper. So I'm going to tip my materials back into my natural art pile. And then next we're going to create our nature mandalas. So a mandala, it's a way of helping us to focus. So we're just going to slowly place our materials, look at them, appreciate the beauty, connect with them, use our senses, notice the textures and the shapes of them, and then we're going to use them to create a pattern. So there's no right or wrong with this, as with all of our activities, it's just whatever you think. So you can just play around. It's almost a bit like a jigsaw piece, just to create a pattern that you like the look of. And this time I am going to just use the ground as my canvas, and I might actually leave this one here so that when someone else comes and visits the garden, if it's not been too windy and wiped it away, with any luck it'll still be here for them to enjoy, and I will have then connected with that next person. Even if I don't meet them or I don't know who it is, they will have hopefully enjoyed a little bit of my artwork. That shows just how easy this activity can be and how easy it is to create a bit of natural art. If you are able to create your art outside, it's really great, as you don't need any equipment or materials. You can just use what you need that has been offered by nature and leave it out in your green space. However, if you're not able to do that, you can always bring it inside. One way that you can bring this activity inside is by creating a rainbow with photographs. So just as we could take our own photographs outside and put them together in the order of a rainbow, we could, if you're able to access the internet, have a look for images and photographs online instead and use those to create our rainbow. Or another very low-tech way to go about it is by using old magazines. So the only materials you would need for this activity is your magazines, maybe a bit of blank paper so that you can use it as your blank canvas, and a pair of scissors to cut out your images. So you might have some magazines already lying around at home anyway. Maybe it's ones you've bought in the past that you've read and finished with. You could use those to cut some pictures out of. Or if you haven't got any purchase magazines, you might have or be able to get hold of free complimentary magazines. So often tourist destinations will have them to let people know what's going on. So for example, I've got one here about the Lincolnshire coast. We've got one about the Peak District National Park. So you could have a little look round on your travels and see if there's anything you could pick up. You might also get membership magazines if you're a member of something. So for example, we have the Derbyshire Wildlife Trust magazine here. So any organisation that's supporting nature and wildlife is likely to have some really good nature pictures in that you could use. Holiday brochures as well could work well. It's just anything, any place you can find some nice natural images with plenty of colour and interest in. And then it's exactly the same as when we were outside, just as we were looking around for natural materials that we find appealing, whether it's for their colour or their patterns or their shapes. All you're going to do is flick through the magazine and cut out what you like the look of. So I have lots of different shapes and colours that I have cut out previously here. And we're going to get started by making a rainbow. You can also use images from a magazine to help create a nature pattern mandala, just as we did outside. So you could actually use the pieces themselves and position them on your paper, just like with the rainbow, to create a pattern. Or you could use the shapes as inspiration to create your own stencils, which I'm going to show you next. So we're going to have a look through our images and see what we feel drawn to, shape-wise. I really like this flower. Now, you don't need to make this complicated, you could just really simplify the patterns, which is what I'm going to do. And it's just a case of drawing out some shapes inspired by the piece of nature you're looking at. So do bear in mind that you are then going to need to cut them out, so it is good to have really nice simple shapes. So for example, I'm going to do one based on this rose. So it's going to have, it's got the circle in the middle, and then it's almost got rounded sort of triangle petals that overlap a little. So there we go, just really simplified. And what we're going to do is create several different shaped pieces and cut them out. Here I have my pattern pieces. So these are going to be my stencils that I use to create my design. But first I need my canvas. And for this we're just going to use another piece of paper. So it can be any colour, I'm just using white today. And you can go freestyle with it, which some people like to do. I personally like to have some kind of guidelines. So to do that, I'm just going to fold the paper in half, and then I'm going to fold it again in half the other way to make quarters. And then I'm going to fold it across this diagonal line as well, from corner to corner. So you can fold it in any way you like. That isn't going to be quite in the middle. It's quite stiff paper I'm using. So I'll have a little bit of oh no, it's not too bad. So there we go, you can see I now have some guidelines coming out from the middle, and then I can just use those now to help position my pieces. So it's just a case of lining them up however you want to, and then when you've decided on a nice position, you can just draw around it, using it as a stencil, and build up your pattern. And there is my finished pattern ready to colour in. And you can see, because it's so stylised, you could even just use shapes that you've drawn from your imagination, or you might be able to go outside or look out the window to spot some natural shapes that you can use for inspiration. And in terms of colouring in, you could use whatever colours you wanted to, but my favourite thing to do is actually to look back at the picture or the real life natural item that inspired me to get some ideas for the colours. And you could make a few of these and then just have them ready to colour in whenever you want to. For our final activity today, we're back outside again, and we are creating some more natural art, this time using a technique called hapazome, which is basically bashing leaves or flowers to get out the colour and using it to print on fabric. So this is our most material intensive activity for the day, so you don't need too much. So it might be things that you already have on hand, and what you will need is some natural material like cotton. So you only need a little bit, so things like old t-shirt, old pillowcase, something like that that you can cut up would work really well. Or if you want to, you could buy a little bit of material for this. You're going to need a pair of fabric scissors. I recommend these pinking shears that have like the little zigzags to cut your fabric, because it just makes a nice job of it. Helps, I think it looks quite decorative, and it just helps it to stop fraying. So you can see there's a rectangle of fabric here, and two sides have been cut using the pinking shears, and two sides, this side here and that side there, have just been cut with regular scissors, and you can see it's starting to fray. I've got a little bit of scrap here, so you can see you don't need much at all. So what I'm actually going to do for the demonstration is just cut a little rectangle out of my scrap fabric here. to use this technique to make myself a little mini bookmark. So once we've got our fabric that we're going to do our printing on, we also need a board to lean on. So it needs to be something nice and smooth and strong, because we're going to be hitting on it, so it needs to be strong enough to hit. And then we're going to need something to hit with. So I just have a hammer today, but something else that works really well is a rolling pin if you put it on its end. So if you imagine this is a rolling pin, you could bash it that way. Even something like a smooth rock you could use, so it just needs to be something heavy that's going to squish all the juices out of your plant material. And then finally you're going to need your plant material, so it needs to be fresh, so you do have to harvest a little bit for this activity, so you need to be somewhere where it's okay to pick. So I have made sure I've kept to abundant species. Some people might think of them as weeds, so for example, probably most people aren't going to mind if you pick a few of their dandelion leaves. And for this activity you want ones that are really fresh and soft and juicy. So I have got myself dandelion leaves, cleaver. I've not tried this before, so I don't know what it'll work like. This is, you might know it as sticky buds. It's what you used to throw at people when you're a child to stick on them. It's the ones that's got the little Velcro hooks, so it will stick on things. And I have some more Jack by the Hedge, and a bit more of the Herb Robert. So what you're going to do is, again, set your materials out to make a pattern. So any pattern you want to, and you're just going to do it on half of the fabric, because then what's going to happen is we're going to fold it over, bash the material in the middle of the fabric, so it will give us a print on both sides. So we'll then fold that over. So you can see I sort of made a little like fabric sandwich, and I'm going to put it down onto my board, and I'm just going to hit it with this hammer until I can see the juices starting to come out. So it is a bit noisy. Watch out for your fingers. Okay, here we go. So you can see all that material in there now is all squished, and you can see the colour coming through. So it's time to open it up and see what we've got. So once you open it up, you can peel away any bits of leaf. And you can do this with flowers as well. So if you've got some petals in your garden that you want to experiment with, they'd work really well. And different fabric comes out with different effects as well. So this one is quite a sort of sturdy textured fabric. So it's come out sort of a bit more abstract. But there we have it. A little bit of Hapazome art. That's it for our activities today, but you don't need to let the creativity stop there. Do keep experimenting and playing with these techniques. Have a go at finding your own, and if this is something that you feel inspired by, you might even want to research environmental artists, and there is some amazing artwork that people have created out there. I hope that this video today has helped you to slow down and really notice the beauty that's all around you, and maybe even help you feel a little bit more connected to the nature on your doorstep, and maybe even with the people that you can share your art with. On that note, if you would like to share your artwork with us, we would love to see it. So do get in touch and show us what you've been creating. And in the meantime, I look forward to seeing you again soon for another Nature at Home video. I'll see you there.